Not at all. I'm going to play some TTS with Matt at probably like 12 or so. So I'll cut us off at that point, if not before.
Cool.
All right.
I'll drop the link in the places.
I got him.
I did in general already.
Oh, shit, dude. Hold on.
These are sick.
Oh, shit. Mine are... Actually, where are mine?
The shipping took a while. Like a while.
Because I got an email like maybe a week and a half ago that said it had shipped. Okay, I'll do that later. I need to put.
All right, you guys ready?
Let me put the link into places.
I put the link in announcements and in self-promotion in stat check. If you want to put it other places, you can put it other places.
Okay, that's fine. That's good.
Sweet. Oh. All right. Here we go. Ooh, welcome to Best in Faction.
I'm sorry, we gotta redo it. I was muted.
No worries. Try it, take two. Ooh, welcome to Best in Faction.
The next generation.
A podcast where no one's New Year's resolution was to start the show on time.
I'm Tyler.
I'm Nick.
We just gotta go for real things, guys. I'm Lukas.
All right, and today we are back. It has been a minute. We have missed you. If you are joining us live, thank you so much. As always, it is 2023, the year of, well, if last year was supposed to be the year of chaos, I don't know what this year is going to be, because man, oh man, is stuff getting wild already. We are 1 week in, and I already don't know what's happening. For those of y'all who have been living under a rock, we've got nonsense involving LVO. We've got nonsense involving all sorts of new rules. We're going to talk about all of it later on in the show. But before we jump into anything too detailed, I haven't seen my boys in a minute. How you guys doing? How you doing today, Lukas?
I'm great, man. There's been so much 40K related things going on in the last week that I'm just excited to get to hang out and talk with you guys. I know, Tyler, you're coming back up to Portland tomorrow. So
Yes,
I am
sir.
very excited to get to hang out with all three of us in person again soon. And just talk about some 40K, play some 40K, because there's a lot changing in the game right now. And yeah, I'm just generally excited about the way where things are, both for Orcs and Chaos Knights. I think there's a lot to explore with both of those armies. So throughout the show today, I'll kind of detail some of my thoughts on some of those things, both related to Arcs of Omen and for what I'm going to be playing at LVO. But yeah, overall, doing very well. Nick, how are you doing?
Doing well, dude. Like, you know, taking the holidays to, like, go visit family and kind of, like, take a break and recharge is pretty nice. Played a little bit of 40K while I was down there, like TTS. But immediately came back, played a practice game in person, and I'm really happy that we have, like, the LVO rules solidified, because now I can kind of, like, focus my mind on, like, all right, what are we playing with? When we were in that, like, you know, who knows what state, I didn't really care about practicing, because I'm like, this might all be worthless in 2 weeks if we're playing with an entirely new game. But now that we know, I'm hyped, I'm focused, I'm ready to go. How about you, Tyler? How are you doing, dude?
I'm doing good, man. I'm doing real freaking good. Similarly, took the holidays down low. I literally, it's right here. I'm putting it in just different places. I don't want to leave it. I have my GSC army, like, right here. This is a mixture of my stuff and Max's stuff. And, like, I brought it down. I had all these aspirations of getting to play all the boys and who are down here, and just none of that happened. I was very busy, did a lot of other stuff, and played 0 in-person games. Managed to play a number of TTS games, but we're just schlepping models around for the fun of it at this point. But yeah, I'm very excited. I am in a very fortunate spot where I didn't really care what the LVO rules were, and I was excited about new changes and old changes, because my excitement of 40K right now is not found in any of that. It's found in GSC, and GSC is great in all formats. So I'm very, very excited to get some reps on. Got a bunch of hobby done the last couple weeks. My Neophyte horde grows ever stronger by the day. So I'm feeling great, ready to rock and roll. So, the title of this episode that I've put up, at least provisionally, is New Year, Old Rules, because we are making a bit of an executive decision, which is that this is an LVO podcast at the end of the day, right? This is a bunch of guys trying to compete in the West Coast on the North American scene, and as much as we have aspirations in a bunch of other formats, that's the first and foremost thing that we're here to cover. So with all of us going to LVO in a couple of weeks, we are going to be honed in on that. If you are looking for full-blown coverage of all the new stuff, we'll talk about some of it for sure over the course of the show in the coming weeks, but our primary focus is going to be what we're doing at and around prepping for and participating in the Las Vegas Open 2023. So that's kind of where we're going forward. So I think the natural first place is to start, or is just sort of a check-in. Where are we at in terms of armies? What are we looking to play? What's going on going forward? But it actually occurs to me, before we get to that, to make sure everyone's on the same page, Nick, could you give us a quick rundown of what they did decide to do for LVO? What is happening? What are all the P's and Q's that that have been figured out? And what are we looking like going forward into this season finale?
Yeah, and if I missed anything, let me know at the end. But from what I understand, they basically rolled back the rules cutoff date to December 31st, so basically the end of 2022. Any rules that come out after December 31st, like the new Arcs of Omen rules, will not be played at LVO. So we're going to be playing with the Nephilim GT packet, Nephilim missions. We're also going to be playing with all the Nephilim, like, list construction rules. So, like, your classic build whatever detachments you want, Battalion, Outrider, Vanguard, Patrol, etc. Start with 6 CP, you got to pay for your warlords and warlord traits and relics and all that. And
very importantly, there's no Armor of Contempt. There's no new balance data slate.
There is no removal of Armor of Contempt. There is Armor of Contempt.
Armor of Contempt is in the game. There's no data slate that removed those rules from the game. There we go.
Yeah. Armor of Contempt is still here.
I don't know where I get cut off there.
No worries. Armor of Contempt is still here. Harlequins still have 4-up invulns. Marines still have old doctrines. We're not playing with any of the points changes. None of that.
So Tyranids still exist.
Tyranids still exist as a faction. It's the last ride. I love it. It's my last chance to be a snowflake before everyone bandwagons over to GSC away from NIDS. It's great.
Also, I don't know if you guys already mentioned, there's a very important book that was not released before December 31st.
Yes, there is no Astra Militarum, baby. Let's go. Let's fucking go.
There is no Guard, and I know a lot of people were worried that if you were playing Old Guard, you wouldn't be able to play with your supplement because those expire January 1st. Well, luckily, we're playing as if it's December 31st, so all the supplements are back.
I'm like 90% sure on that one.
Well,
if LVO changes their mind about that, don't get mad at us about it. But I'm pretty sure you're right. I'm pretty sure. Double check with Reese.
That would make sense.
It would make a lot, and particularly why they would choose December 31st instead of just saying it was yesterday. Yeah. So we're not entirely sure. Jason, we'll talk about some of the changes on the tail half of the episode. But in general, Tyranids don't exist anymore.
I think it's really good though, because LVO is meant to be like it's the end cap tournament of the 2022 year. We should be playing with the last rules going in. If they'd able to like put out a bounce status slate that wasn't built around all these new points changes and like rules changes, we should definitely be playing with that. But this bounce status slate was obviously made with points changes and detachment changes in mind, so you can't like pick one and not use the others. And making everyone learn a whole new format in 2 weeks is not good. So, yeah.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. This is people, we are so far past refund deadlines. Everyone's got everything booked up and ready to go. And especially to like all the poor, and I mean, I don't have a lot of sympathy for other mono Tyranid players. We've had it pretty fucking great for a while. But for all the people who, spend a whole year getting their NIDS armies, their Harlequin armies, their Chaos Space Marine armies ready to go for so long, their bullshit with flamers, fuck you guys. But basically, those people saying, hey, sorry, you got to pick something new and start from scratch in 3 weeks would be, I agree, it would be a lot. And there's going to be people mad no matter what they do, but I think this is the one that leads to at least the most level field. I know there was also a lot of conversation about some of the ethics around content creators who have had this stuff for the last couple weeks. We at Best in Tabletop do not get direct stuff from GW. We're not under NDAs. We may be a bit more plugged in than most people, so we've seen a good number of rumors. But it would definitely feel quite I for this particular instance, I generally don't think this is the case, but in this particular case, it would have felt a little bit unfair if Art of War and whatnot had been playing with this stuff for 2 weeks longer than the rest of us, because that's the whole time we'll get to play with it before the giant thing at the end of the year. I really think that LVO made the right call on this one. What do you think, Lucas?
I definitely agree. I think it's also just simplest to play with what we've been playing with the last couple months. It would be kind of fun to have a let's try to figure it out, and everyone kind of tackles the brave new world together. But as you said, there's all sorts of rules that some people have had access to longer than others, and that always doesn't feel good. So yeah, I definitely am. I'm personally bummed out because I feel like my armies get a lot better with removal of things like Armor of Contempt. So from a very selfish standpoint, I'm a little bit bummed, but overall, I think it's definitely the right call.
Sounds good. Cool. So now that we're all on the same page about what exactly is going on, let's talk a little bit about what we're planning to do there. So I think this is the $1 million question for everyone who's been paying attention to this podcast space for a while. Lucas Troller, are you playing Chaos Knights, or are you taking the boys to the Las Vegas Open 2023?
I will very likely be taking Chaos Knights. It is it is what I am much more practiced on as of late, especially on player place Drain. I haven't played player place Orcs for 6 months or more. The Orcs games reps that I have been getting in are on WTC. And I just don't feel confident about being able to hide an Orc army on LVO style terrain. In all the shooting armies that are out there, and I get that Chaos Knights have a bad shooting army too, but bad shooting matchups as well. But I never really had the delusion of being able to hide 13 War Dogs, So those guys are going out on the line. I'm gonna hope to go first, and I won't have to worry about trying to hide a bunch of kill rigs that don't ever
just
hide.
go first 10 times and you'll win Vegas. It's great. Nothing can go wrong.
Amazing. So, yeah, I'm bringing Chaos Knights. There's a couple variants I was thinking about. There's obviously the Desecrator variant. I could run a Megara. I could run Abaddon. But I think I'm going to settle in on 13 War Dogs. It gives a little bit more mission play. It makes achieving those Chaos Knight secondaries a little bit easier, which I was actually having some trouble with in the Abaddon list because, a sixth of my list was not Chaos Knights. I can't achieve any of those secondaries. So, yeah, 13 dogs, has more firepower. It can just blow people up, especially armies without AOC. All the AP2 adds up really fast. And, yeah, I'm just going to take the doggies out for a walk without Abaddon this time. And we're going to see how it goes.
Sounds good. And what about you, Mr. Naj down there? There obviously hasn't been any changes that might indicate that Votann are in need of jumping ship from, but are you walking that same path that took you so well in Slaanesh, or are we looking at something else?
Yeah, dude. I was thinking shaking it up, one last ride for the Harlequins or something. No, I'm kidding. No, I'm gonna play Votann. I'm 99% sure. They're the army I'm enjoying the most right now. The army I feel most confident with. They don't have a lot of changes going into Arcs of Omen, so looking forward to the next year. I mean, obviously LVO is not practice, but the reps that I'm getting right now are very useful. So,
yeah. And at the end of the day, you're totally right. LVO is some of the best reps you're going to get come day 2. Who in some of those later games, it makes sense to do that with something that you think you'll want to get more reps on in the future. I see that.
Yeah, I also kind of like Lucas. I like figuring out an army and then practicing it a bunch and then playing that army. Switching last minute isn't something I like to do. And I also don't see the reason for it. I think that all the armies I enjoy playing, Harlequins, Necrons, Votann, are all very strong, and they're all they have different strengths and weaknesses in different areas.
Sorry, I had a bit of an internet issue there.
Oh, good.
Can you hear us, Nick?
Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. Cool. Well, that's very exciting. Did you get through everything you wanted to cover there? I lost y'all for a sec there.
Oh, yeah, just like the reason why I was taking Votann. So
Sounds good.
yeah, we can talk about it more too.
Yeah, for sure. No, we'll cover some more depth. Sweet. I, for one, am definitely rocking and rolling with GSC. I live and die for the Four-Armed Emperor at this point in time. Similarly, really to both these other guys, they're an army that I don't think is going to need that much adjusting. There's definitely an argument to go and play Kraken because it is very strong, and this is, a last ride sort of situation. But at the end of the day, I'd rather the GSC reps. I'm more confident in my ability to pilot the GSC, and I'm less confident in everyone else's ability to pilot against the GSC. So I want to definitely take as full advantage of that as possible. You play something that's a little more off meta, there's always benefits to that. People are not teching for it, and people won't have reps into it. So that should be fun. Very excited. Getting a lot of hobby done. For those of y'all who aren't following me like personally, I've been borrowing a whole bunch of my GSC lately as I've been stockpiling up a bunch of stuff and getting stuff painted. And like my hope against hope is that I will be able to play all my own stuff for LVO and not have to use any of this borrowed stuff. We'll see if we can make that happen. It does involve painting 80 neophytes, but I think we can make some magic happen. So I'm very excited for that for sure. Okay.
What do you? Should we roll this right into talking about lists, or are we not really interested in that today?
Yeah, sure. Why not?
What list innovations have you made in the last couple of months, Tyler? Because I know for a while you were playing with those 3 derpy little trucks, and and as fun as those things were, I recall you saying that they weren't living up to be all that you would hope they would be. So what has replaced them in the list?
So the rock grinders are what I have come to call, and I think some people have picked up on this, the training wheels version of the GSC list. It is very good, to be clear. It is literally what Eric Lathuris took to WTC last year. Like, list fucks. It's great. But at the end of the day, those 3 rock grinders are very good at certain things and not very good at the other thing, which is being points efficient. In a lot of situations, if you're not using them just right, they feel like complete dead weight, and even when you can pull off a lot of fun and shenanigans with them, they still die really easily, and they also give you this giant bullseye for your enemy to point their melta-guns at, which is so annoying. Like, way before the show even started, I was all in on Lukas and I used to be like just Horde players in like late stage 8th edition. I was playing 120 Gaunts plus 80 Acolytes. Lukas was playing like 180 boys. Like that was the way to play Warhammer. And the thing that those lists always did phenomenally was say, hey, all your stupid anti-tank weapons, they're an absolute waste of points. You fire that 20-point meta gun, you kill a 6-point neophyte. Fine by me. So in leaning into that, and also sort of following what's become a little more trendy with GSC lately by Lathuris, Innes, Wilson, and others, I've ended up at what I think is pretty much the mainline GSC build at this point, which is still 30 bikes, but instead of 40 neophytes and 3 rock grinders, just a rock-solid 80 neophytes, all with seismic cannons and mostly shotguns, and picking up a little bit of additional support characters as well as that in the form of the Clamavis, who is my favorite tech piece of all time. That girl does so much for 50, and she's going to be 45 after LVO, which is nonsense to me. My also very, very small personal spice on this is that most people have been playing her with Oppressor's Bane, and by most people I mean like literally Innes. Which is really nice tech. It hands out crossfire tokens real well. It can do a little bit of damage here and there. It's a little 3-shot 2-damage relic pistol, which is actually good. Like I've played with it. It's a good thing. But I really like trading out damage for cute shit. And the cute shit in this question is a relic called what is it called? The Voice of something or other. I don't even remember what it's called.
The Voice of New Truths?
Voice of New Truths, that might be it. I think it's Truths, but I don't know that it's new.
I don't know. Insert joke about forearms here.
Yeah, exactly. Whatever the case, it's the Clamavis specific relic, which when I initially read this book like a year ago when it came out, I thought was the dumbest relic I had ever seen. But it's actually really spicy. So what it does, first off, let me just explain what a Clamavis does, because I'm sure 90% of people listening to this podcast have never seen one before. This is the speaker dude, not the DJ dude with the map, the Nextos, but the speaker dude with the big old stick with a Bluetooth on the end of it. And he does a bunch of stuff. So, first and foremost, the thing that I think you have to know about him is that he has a 12-inch no deep strike bubble, a la like an Omni Scrambler or an Infiltrator kind of thing, which is really nice. And then, in addition to that, he has 2 different point-and-click abilities. One's in your command phase, and one's in your morale phase. In the command phase, he picks out a unit within 12, and that unit can do 2 things simultaneously. It can shoot an action, so fantastic, shooting and acting at the same time, love that, and it is immune to combat attrition. Not immune to combat attrition modifiers, immune to combat attrition. So you fail morale, 1 guy flees, and then you're done. Stop. Make a coherency check. You don't need to roll any dice, no ones or 2s, no 1s or 2s or 3s or 4s, none of this nonsense. They pass. They're done. Which is fantastic for the way that the list likes to string out and pull guys in awkward ways and control morale. Fantastic. So then the second ability that it has is again 12-inch range. It's in your morale phase, and instead of buffing your dudes, this is an offensive ability. I'm going to pick an enemy unit at 12 inches, and that enemy unit is going to roll 3 dice, or I'm going to roll 3 dice and compare it to that enemy's leadership. Not 3 dice, pick the 2 highest, just 3 dice, add them all together, and if I beat your leadership, 2 things are going to happen. Number 1, you're going to fail any actions that you're currently doing, and you're going to be ineligible to perform actions until the next turn. It occurs to me that I have not actually checked if psychic actions count for that. Do things that prevent you doing actions prevent you doing psychic actions? I don't remember.
I would imagine
do you know this,
so.
Lukas?
It's an action, right?
I think so, yeah. So, in a world where a lot of people there's a lot of actions that are really good to stop. So the ones that come to mind are Storm of Darkness from this nut job over here. That's great. No Storm of Darkness for you. It's also fantastic for when you play on like the Scouring, for example. Shutting down a strategic scan is really great. It's hilarious then, though, into the units that do actions. So, like, I'm going to fire my Death Strike missile. Your leadership 7. No, you're not. Sorry. You both stop now and can't do it next turn either. Like, just get fucked. It's silly. And then, the second half of this ability is that you also lose OBSEC. So I am playing an army that drops OBSEC dudes 3 inches away from you, or 8 inches and charges potentially with a +1, and then turns off your OBSEC as well. The primary game has never been stronger. It's silly. I played a game, some WTC practice, against a Demons player who had a Sloppity Bile Piper, who does the same thing.
Oh my goodness.
And it was like, no OBSEC for you, no OBSEC for you, but no OBSEC for you. It was hilarious. They were both in the same place, all fighting over the same objective. I ended up with a 1-man neophyte squad, just one dude. He assumed that I was gonna, like, I did the thing where, you leave a dude and then you break coherency, and it looks like I'm just gonna pull this dude and leave the guys back next to the banner. But actually, I left the one dude, lost everybody else. He fell back from combat with some demonettes, and then was a second OBSEC unit on the objective with the other squad of neophytes. And the Bile Piper could only turn off one of the 2 squads of OBSEC. So I got to keep it because the other one still had it. So anyway, the shenanigans abound, is the moral of the story. So what the relic does, the Voice of New Truths or whatever it is it makes both of those abilities, not the anti-deep strike bubble, that stays what it is, but the 2 point-and-click abilities go from 12 inches to 18 inches. I have a 37.25-inch radius bubble of I can turn off OBSEC. That is like half the table.
Yeah.
Hilarious. And in addition to that, she picks a 12-inch bubble of +1 leadership. Which, man oh man, with all the Chaos Knights out there and all the Chaos Demons out there, I am really happy to have that right now.
Yep.
There was a point in time when I was straight up thinking about taking Inspiring Leader on my Primus, because I really wanted my army to be Leadership 9. And now I just get that and also a bunch of other fantastic buffs for the same command point. So that's my little, there's your little GSC tech of the day right there. That's a lot of fun. And that's kind of what I'm landing on. So like I said, the list is Primus, Icon Ward, 5 Naked Acolytes, like 6 Acolytes with Hand Flamers, 20, 40, 60, 80 Neophytes. Specifics we'll talk about in later episodes, and then the usual slew of support characters, the Nexos, the 2 Assassins, the Kelemorph and the Sanctus, and then also the Clamavis, and then the 10 Pure Strains with the pregame move, 30 Bikes with Flamers, 2 Demo Charges, and that's a wrap. That's basically almost 100% what I'm taking to LVO. There's some minor tweaks here and there that might get played around with a couple of points. I'll talk more about details once I have everything submitted, but that's kind of where I'm at. What about you, Lukas? I know that you seem to have... You were talking about earlier how you honed in on 13 dogs, but which 13 dogs? Because I have played into a lot of Chaos Knights recently, and I find that there is way more variety than I had initially anticipated in what people are taking, and that has just a radical outcome on how the army plays at all.
Yeah, so I've made a couple changes to just the loadouts on my dogs. And then obviously, because I had to add a couple as well, I needed to decide which ones those were going to be. So I had a couple of considerations as I was coming into LVO. The first one is like modeling related. I obviously really like playing at a very high competitive level, but I'm kind of an old school idiot when it comes to my models. Maybe it's not even old school. Maybe the right word is I'm just an idiot. But I really like gluing in the arms of my dogs, because I think like the poses are just super cool looking when they're like, can be striding forward or like swinging their weapon or something instead of just looking dumbly, arms hanging by the side. So yeah, we glued in all the arms, which has the benefit of models look really cool, but has the detriment of loadouts are very hard to swap. Basically impossible. And my buddy Max, who I was borrowing my 3 Meltasword Stalkers from, is going to be playing Freeblade Lance at LVO in all likelihood. So those Stalkers are no longer available to me. They will be serving the Corpse God at LVO, and that is not what you love to see if you're a fan of the Dark Gods. So I managed to get my hands on 1 Meltasword guy over Christmas break, who I'm going to be hobbying up, and also got an extra Executioner. The Executioners are the Chaos versions of the Helverins, double autocannon guys. So I now have 3 Helverins, and those were the first thing I slotted into my 13 dogs list. I played a practice rep against a really cool guy from Europe over the break. It was a Chaos Knights mirror. I did end up winning it, but in the mirror matchup, having the 3 guys, he had 13 dogs. I was playing with a Desecrator. Having in the mirror, or just into Knights in general, the 3 War Dogs with double autocannons is crucial. Those guys are super effective into targets like enemy Helverins. So they're really good at shooting into things like Berserkers. They're obviously amazing at shooting into GSC, like bikers and that kind of thing. All sorts of targets, and they're not great into everything, but into a lot of targets, they can do a lot of work really fast. And when you have 3 of them, the damage can really rack up. They are not Herpatrax. They are going to be worthy offerings at LVO, so they'll be +1 to hit vehicles, monsters, and characters, which will be good. And obviously, one of them has the Zinch pregame upgrade. Without those Meltagun models borrowed from Max, I needed to figure out a way to get more Meltaguns into my list. I'm fine running more chain cannons than average. I'm going to have 8 in my LVO list in all likelihood. But I can't just have 1 Melta Lance. So I did end up slotting 2 Brigands into my list as well. The Brigands are the guys with Meltagun chain cannon. Just so that there's a little bit of extra anti-tank. I'm not the biggest fan of these guys. They can do a lot of work, but they also, because they get a little bit closer than the Executioners to the enemy, they are liable to being tagged, and that can be really bad. Although you can obviously use this to bait your opponent as well, because some people will see a non-melee dog and then just automatically brain goes into me tag mode, and then all of a sudden, if you're tagging the Brigand, then the Carnivore right behind him is going to come punch you in the face. This is the second change I made to my Knights list. Because I took out Abaddon, and to transition Abaddon, I took out the Desecrator. Those are 2 obviously very hard-hitting melee units. Taking those both out of my list means that there's a little bit less melee than I'm used to. So I wanted to really have a like dedicated melee dog to respond to tough threats that kind of plunge into my lines. So I put the dog hat on a carnivore who I've given the blood shield. So this is a 7 attack carnivore who can turn off invulns once or twice per game, and gives off the lieutenant aura as well. So if I need this guy to go in and just punch something super hard, I can supercharge him with some strats, and he goes in and does a lot of damage. He also is 2 inches faster of movement, so that lieutenant aura that can sometimes get jammed up because, you know, not all dog movements are are created equal. Basically, sometimes your 12-inch move dog rolls a 1 on his advance, who has the dog hat. It's like, oh well, the lieutenant aura is stuck in my DZ this turn. That guy having +2 movement is really nice for just getting upfield. So we've got the executioners, we've got the 1 melted dude, we've got the carnivore, and then the rest of the list is just we got the 2 brigands as well. And then the rest of the list is just 6 guys with fists and chain cannons. They've been a staple on my list. All versions of Chaos Knights that I've played so far have had 5 or 6 of these guys, and I think the chain cannons are going to do a lot of work. Like we were saying at the beginning, like I said at the beginning, rather, I would have loved to see AOC go away for LVO. This much AP2 is just disgusting in a world where AOC doesn't exist. For those not keeping track, I have 8 chain cannons and 3 executioners. So that is a whole boatload of AP2 shooting. But so it won't be very effective into things like Terminators and cover, but into all other targets, I can mostly wait to fire them down, has been my experience. And yeah, so overall, feeling somewhat confident about the list. It does a lot of damage. It's pretty fast. It is decent secondary play. It does have some weaknesses in the form of it's very difficult to hide. So going second against some heavy shooting armies, especially mobile ones like Tau, they can just kind of blow you up. So in those matchups, you kind of got to use like player place forests to the best of your ability to, you know, make yourself -1 to hit, and then run out as best you can and clap back if you happen to go second. But those disadvantages have always existed for both Chaos Knights and Orcs, right? It never feels good to go second into a shooting army. So this is certainly isn't a unique problem for Chaos Knights. But yeah, that's where I am list-wise. Very excited to get to try it out. In an ideal world, I would change those 2 brigands to Melta Sword Stalkers, and that would also net me 20 points that I would use to buy another pregame upgrade. This list is a little bit light on pregame upgrades. I did ditch some of the actually most of the indirect missile hats to fit those in. So those are out, and in exchange, I've picked up the Beguiling Majesty, -1 to hit and wounded melee, and then the Khorne Blood Shield obviously costs a lot of points, but no defensive pregame upgrades, which is a bit of a bummer. So yeah, mixed bag overall, but excited to see how it does. I definitely need some more reps in the next couple weeks to kind of really suss out how the list plays.
I'm wondering about I know there's a lot of CK players out there that opt to go for like the 14 dogs and just like minimal upgrades. Like, why do you I know I like the vows, but why do you value the vows or the packs so much over like an extra body?
The vows are great because they're tools for certain matchups. Like in certain scenarios, just having 1 vow can change the dynamic of a game. Like if I see certain kinds of melee units and I know that I have Beguiling Majesty in my list, putting her on a flank just locks that entire flank down because nothing that they have can actually deal with that in melee. So it's like a 20-point investment. It's a 20-point investment that in 8 out of 10 games will hardly do anything, but in 2 out of 10 games will actually change the dynamic of how your opponent has to play. And it just makes it so much easier to have that tool available. The other thing is the 14 dog list is, I think it's much heavier on, obviously Stalkers are an amazing data sheet, but I think that list is a lot more carnivores as well. So you're picking up 1 body in exchange for losing a lot of firepower, and I don't really like that. I think the strength of Chaos Knights is having good shooting and good melee and leadership shenanigans. It's not just having bodies. I think, you know, having 13 bodies worth of OPSEC dogs all over the place is totally fine for primary control. Going to 14 is a very marginal increase. But going to 14 is not a marginal decrease in firepower. It is severely hampering the amount of damage you can do in the shooting phase. So that's why I like 13 a lot more than 14.
Yeah. I love, too, how you use the Blood Shield Carnivore. I know that a lot of people might just be like, you know, Ooga Booga Carnivore and like run it in the front lines at their opponent. Because like that guy moves 14 inches. He's super fast. But what I love is like when I was playing Necrons into him, you'd keep him back. So like when I commit like the King or like commit a Scorpex squad with a Chronomancer buff, you're like, cool, I'm countercharging you with my guy who's going to turn off your Invuln and like uppercut you in the next week. So like that's like a really cool tool that I feel like people don't realize. Like they send their Smash character in and you're like, okay, well, does he have a 4-up? Sounds good. Now he doesn't.
Yep. Yeah, he's also very good in conjunction with the fact that I have the 5 shooting dogs. Because like I said, a lot of people tunnel vision on tagging those guys. And if you're tagging one of the shooting dogs that are benefiting from the Lieutenant aura, that Lieutenant is going to come up and smash you in the face. Like it's an automatic charge. So, yeah. It's a fun combo.
I very much enjoy tagging shooting dogs when there is not Big Brother sitting right behind there with a little on the glass with his little blood shield there. I know you talked about a couple of the packs that you were really excited about. Do you want to talk a little bit about? I know you were telling us you might have some fun secret techie packs that people might not be expecting quite as much. What's the inside scoop from someone who's been knee deep in Chaos Knights for so long? What do you got for us, detective?
Yeah, so a bit of a bummer with Doggy lists is they only start with 3 CP because of the way Trace Lances are built. So the list starts with 3 CP, and obviously Dog Hat is automatic. So we're already down to 2 CP. I only really feel comfortable playing this army if I can start turn 1 on 2 CP if I go first, because there's a 2 CP stratagem that gives War Dog 6s to hit explode against a target. So in a lot of games, I'm imagining there will be a large target for things like the mirror matchup or playing against Loyal Knights. Or I don't know what. If there's a big target on the other side of the field, I want to be able to do 2 CP, 6 explode on turn 1 into that unit. So
yeah, I mean, imagine you're playing against like Chaos Space Marines and you get to go first, so they don't have Supplication off, and their Terminator brick isn't very well hidden. You got to be able to dump in that, take advantage of that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So those are the 2 givens for list construction with 13 dogs. So we're starting with 3 CP. We're spending 1 on Helm of Dogs. So we're already down to 2 CP. And we need to start on 1 CP. So we only have 1 more Relic or Warlord trait to buy. Fortunately, the Warlord traits are all doggy doo-doo. Actually, they're not all horrible, but they're not worth a CP in the limited economy that I have. But there are several relics that are really good. The one that I'm using right now is on the Tzeentch Executioner, called the Helm of Warpsight, which gives him ignore hit mods and light cover, which is really good. Means he'll always hit on 2s into big targets unless he's degraded. And then obviously ignores cover as well is pretty good on his AP2 autocannons. Helps out into the AOC problem in cover that I was discussing. So that's pretty good. The alternative that when I was leafing through yesterday, I got pretty excited about the fact that it seems like dog lists are going to start with 6 CP in Arcs of Omens, which is really cool. Which means they
might start with 9.
Oh, because I'll have the 6 and then the +3 from the Traitoris Lance?
Yeah, that's my current rules as written reading of that, but
okay,
I hope it's FAQ'd.
Only in like super heavy Oxes?
No, it says whatever your detachment is, if you have the right number of knights, you get the CP.
Oh. Okay.
Which is weird.
That is...
But...
ridiculous. Anyway, so
let's pretend we don't live in Candyland over here, and maybe you have 6 CP.
Even 6 CP is really good, right? I was very excited about exploring new relics and warlord traits last night, so I was leafing through the book, and there was a lot of cool relics, but one of the ones that really stuck with me is the Soul Raptor Swarm. So the Soul Raptor Swarm is a relic that you give to a terror Actually, I don't know that you can give it to a dog. Let me just double check. But basically, the Soul Raptor Swarm does. I'm gonna check. I'm checking.
While you look for that, can you repeat the name of that relic?
I have it right here. The Soul Raptor Swarm.
That is God. You guys have the coolest freaking names for stuff, man. That's awesome. Please read us the flavor text of that before you actually read us the rule, just to build tension.
Gladly. And just so everyone knows, I'm not cheating preemptively. It does work on any Terra Shades model, so I can give it to a dog. So this knight is ridden by a flock of predatory avian demons, their wicked talons anchoring them to fuel pipes and spiked trim. The presence of such soul raptors is a mark of the pilot's favor in the eyes of the dark gods. It is also a source of terror amongst the foe, whose slightest show of fear is enough to invite attack by the awful creatures. The soul raptors tear apart their victims' animus and, as they feed, so their link to the chosen knight sees their victim's life force channeled to regenerate battle damage or heal its wounded pilot. Super
Let's
sick.
go, dude. All right,
Yeah.
what does it do? What does it do? Tell us what it does.
You give it to a Terra Shades model, and there are two effects. The first one is whenever the bear loses a mortal wound, unless it's a result of the weird infernal like do damage to yourself mortals in the command phase, you get a 4-up. So 4-up Feel No Pain against mortals. And whenever an enemy unit is within dread range and a model flees from that unit, heal a wound to a max of 3 per morale phase. So the healing is just a bonus, right? I would take this alone for the Feel No Pain if there's enough armies that do like direct psychic damage in the game. And one of the things I'm worried about is something like, well, first of all, just Tzeentch in general doing a lot of mortal wounds, and Tzeentch in combination with T-Suns doing a lot of direct mortal wounds. Having the front dog in my army run out and be like, yeah, instead of 14 wounds with Smite, I'm gonna take 28 on average. Have fun.
You know who else is terrified of this in addition to T-Suns and Flamers?
Tyranids.
Kraken, baby. Man, I would not want to play into that if I were playing Kraken right now.
Lamau, your zoanthropes do nothing.
Yeah, here's my 11 4 mines. Oh, they only did 4 mortals? What?
Yeah.
Like, oh my gosh.
So it is. I'm seriously debating actually running this at LVO. Biggest grain of salt available, though. I haven't really tested it. So I don't really know how it goes. But oftentimes the Helm of Warpsight feels superfluous. Like, I feel like it's not entirely necessary. So I think I might be giving this a shot, and I think it's going to give me a lot of assistance into psychic heavy armies, or just mortal heavy armies, because right now I have no defense into that kind of thing. So just having an extra tool is gonna be really good in those matchups. So yeah, I'm really excited to try this out.
I like it a lot.
Because,
It's going to be fun.
Seems really
We
fun.
should definitely get that on the table versus T-Suns and also versus Nids. See just how irritating it can be. Very spicy. All right, cool. So there's your GSC tech of the week. There's your Chaos Knights tech of the week. What is going on over in the mines, Nick? Tell us about what you're thinking Votann wise. Is what changes, what tips and tricks. What do you got in the bag, brother?
For LVO?
No, for towel tipping in 8 months.
No, okay. Well, so for Tau tipping, no, I'm kidding. For LVO, yeah, we're not playing with any of the new points changes, right? So we're not playing with any of the detachments, so I don't need to worry about like being 100 points more expensive or not having to take troops anymore or any of that weird stuff. Basically, I'm sticking with the Ymir Beam Death list. I think it's one of the strongest, if not the strongest Votann list. It's pretty foolproof. That said, the game plan is very obvious. Like, you're projecting a very obvious game plan to your opponent, which is here's these 2 trucks full of death that are going to roll towards you. And unless you can stop them, they will come crashing into your lines and eventually kill you. And at LVO, like, if my goal is to go 5-1, 6-0, get into the shadow, right? Those would all be great things to happen. I'm going to end up playing some, skilled opponents, some people who know how the game works quite well, and those people can disrupt the game plan quite a bit. I don't really think there's a lot of tech changes you can make to really counter that, because Votann are very much limited in points because they are a very elite army. Once you kind of take the stuff that's mandatory for the Beam Death list, you don't really have a lot of points left over. So, there isn't what you're saying, I'll take a Clamavis, or Lukas is I'll take Soul Raptor Swarm, right? There isn't really anything like that for specific matchups, except one thing. There's one specific matchup, which is the T-Suns Flamer matchup. That is a from what I hear, pretty horrendous matchup for Votann when you're playing against like the right person, because that is also a very difficult army to pilot well. That army has a ton of options it can like do, and I feel like people could get easily overwhelmed by it. But if people have practiced into Votann, like the Beam Death lists, and they practice that army, like they're gonna know what to do. One of the main reasons why that's such a difficult matchup is T-Suns have a secondary called Wrath of Magnus, which is as long as your opponent has a Psyker, you may take the secondary. It is in the No Mercy, No Respite category, which my opponent, my army doesn't give up no prisoners, so like they're not losing anything for taking something in No Mercy, No Respite, and also like you shouldn't take grind against Votann, so they're not losing anything there. So what this secondary says is, as long as your opponent has a Psyker, if you manifest what I think more Witchfire powers than they did in their Psychic phase, you get a point. If you manifest more maledictions, you get a point, and if you manifest more blessings, you get a point. So you just basically sit there, you know, doing wheelies and popping tricks and stuff like that in the corner, and you're like, oh, Cacodemonic Curse, you know, Warp Surge, other, you know, Gaze of Hate, and my Grimnir cries because he can only cast 2 powers a turn, and they get 15 points. One of the other downsides is I can't take Abhor the Witch because I have a Psyker in my army. T-Suns don't give it up as much as like Grey Knights, but since my game plan as Votann is drive forward and table you, I think that's a very good secondary to have access to into them. And I don't have that with a Grimnir. So that is one of the only really big changes I'd make, is like if that matchup feels impossible with a Grimnir and feels beatable without a Grimnir, then I will cut the Grimnir for something else. That said, if the matchup feels impossible either way, it's probably better to just stick with the Grimnir. And the reason why is because, like, what does the Grimnir give to the Votann list? The Grimnir casts 2 spells a turn. One of the spells is Interface Echo, so he's giving you an extra CP, which is very important because Votann are a very CP-hungry army. They could easily use 4 CP in 1 turn across the shooting and fight phase. They could easily use like 4 CP in a single shooting phase. So, and like all of those are good strats. So getting an extra CP turn is very strong. He also usually, I buy him with the relic called the Murmuring Stave, which lets him action and cast, which is very good because Votann secondaries aren't that strong. And since most of your secondaries revolve around tabling your opponent, having access to a psychic secondary option in certain matchups, very important. Yeah. Now, if I didn't have the Grimnir, he's what, 90 points? So that's not a lot. That's not a squad of troops. Squad of troops is 120. That's not a squad of bikes. A squad of bikes is 90, 115 base. And like there aren't really any upgrades I'd like to cut from the list to try to like get another thing. Like maybe I could like trim some things to get a 3rd squad of bikes. What I think would be best maybe is trading at the Grimnir for a Iron Master. So I already have an Iron Master. He's the Tech Marine guy. And I've upgraded him to a Forge Master. That's the one who can like blank the save and heal for 4. But a second Iron Master gives me the ability to give another core vehicle unit +1 to hit in the shooting phase, in the command phase for shooting phase. So I could have 2 tanks hitting on 2s, which is very strong. Or I could like make both the bikes hit on 2s before they pregame move and like go, you know, kill my opponent from behind walls. The other thing too is the Iron Masters can advance in action, which is very strong because Votann infantry is very slow. Moving 5 inches. So now it's like, all right, we can lurch forward 8 inches and like banners, or like lurch forward 8 inches and, you know, mine for some more. He can also advance and shoot, which is very good. And he can heal for D3. So like I can heal 1 tank for 4 a turn. Oh, it's D3 +1 and heal another tank for D3 +1. So I think that makes the most sense as the 1-for-1 swap if T-Suns Flamers ends up being an impossible matchup with the Grimnir. And that's why we're going to be doing some testing here in the coming weeks.
What about a 3rd squad of bikers? Because obviously they seem... the bikers seem amazing to me, and taking a 3rd squad of bikers would also improve your prospects of wealth gain, would it not? How often do you take that secondary?
I pretty much only take it on Data Scry and sometimes the Scouring. Like if I'm the pressure army on the Scouring, I'll take it on that.
Okay, it doesn't really work on 5 objective missions other than Scouring.
Well, because it's scan an objective marker outside of your DZ, 3 points for each one you scan. So on most 5 objective missions, that's only 9 points because you're like never getting to your opponent's DZ. And because it's the old wording where you can't scan it if there's an enemy model on the objective. So chances are that I clear my opponent off their home and get to scan before turn 5 is very, very, very low.
Yeah, for sure.
So
okay, so that's not an amazing secondary. Was the third squad of bikes in consideration for just like more material on the board purposes?
Yeah,
because
that would require me
that does seem like
some upgrades.
Yeah, just points wise, you mean?
That would require me cutting ignore cover, the searchlight, or like the minigun from the bike squads, because the troops just have med packs, and that's only 5 points, and I'd need to find 15 points somewhere. So I'd have to cut all the med packs, which seems really bad, or I'd have to cut like a minigun and an ignore cover for another squad of bikes with neither. Like I could cut both the miniguns, and then I have now 3 squads of bikes with ignore dense, ignore light, searchlight. But now they're only putting out like 9 autocannon shots. Doesn't seem that great.
Yeah, it's not a lot of shooting.
The minigun's very, very good for 10 points. It's another 9 shots at 6-2-1, ignoring light and ignoring dense.
Yeah. Okay, so maybe the character for character swap is the best. I don't know. I just was looking for a way to get the third squad of bikes in there because they seem so good.
I agree.
Yeah. What the hell?
We could hear you.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Yeah, I'm kind of with Lukas. I like the lack of material seems like the thing that bites you in the butt if anything does. And that seems like definitely an opportunity to try to mend that. I'm trying to imagine like we have the opposite conversation. If you were playing 3 bikes and 2 characters, and you told me, hey, I'm thinking about cutting a squad of bikes down to a second Iron Master, and I'll also with those points be able to pick up med packs on all 3 squads. I don't know that I'd say you should do that.
Well, it's... Oh, I see what you're saying.
Like if you already had the 3,
if you already had the 3 bikes instead of the
third bike squad would have 0 upgrades. I wouldn't like the third bike squad. If I cut the med packs and the character, it'd just be 3 naked bikes with no upgrades, which seems kind of bad.
So what would you wouldn't have a minigun on it? What else would you not have on it?
I wouldn't have ignore light cover, and I wouldn't have ignore dense, and the ability to hand out a judgment token for a CP.
The token ability seems whatever. You've got 2 other squads that can do that. I don't think all 3 of them need to do that. Yeah. Ignoring the cover is annoying, but not the end of the world. The gun really sucks. How many points is the gun?
10 points.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
How often are you using the judgment stratagem off the bikes?
All the time.
If I go first, like 100% of the time.
Gotcha.
It's very strong because what you do is you judgment something that you want your land train to get reroll hits against, and then you spend a CP to get reroll hits.
Yeah, it's like usually it's the really only reliable way to actually like get a judgment on a target you want if you go first, right? Because the call might not be able to see them, and they haven't done any actions or been on an objective yet. So if you want Chapter Master on turn 1, it's the only way to do it. But you only really need 1 or 2 squads to have that light for that purpose, right? Like, you don't need every single squad to have that ability. If the main reason you're going to use it is to get Chapter Master on turn 1.
Yep. It's also really useful to sometimes, like, push a guy from 2 to 3 if I'm about to, like, slam that guy with, like, all the squads at Hearthkin.
Sure.
Like, I'll do that tonight sometimes. So, it's also very strong for the secondary, right? If I'm about to... If there's something I need to kill to get points, right? Ancestors are watching, killing things with the judgment token to get 2 points. So, I don't use that strat like throughout the game every turn. I usually use it like turn 1, and then maybe like on the other turns, kind of depending. But it's very useful to have. So, I agree. You don't need it on the second bike squad, but I feel like a squad of bikes without a minigun is pretty silly.
Okay.
So like it's only 10 points to get 9 more shots.
Yeah, the minigun is ridiculous. So
yeah, for sure. No, I am not trying to get the squad out of that. I'm trying to find the 10 points. That is
exactly.
Yeah.
So I mean, what you could do is cut the light cover from the other bikes. So, but then again, it's one of those issues of like, you know, ignoring like the minigun's less useful now that you don't ignore light. Because one of the big strengths of that unit is like pre-game moving to like blast sisters to hell from behind a wall, right? And like, hey, those rets are really cool. What if they took like, you know, what is it? 36, shots that ignored your cover at like AP 2 and 3. So yeah.
Brr. It's such a bummer that Votann don't have a lot of datasheet options. Because if you had a way to cut one of your squads of troops down to a scout equivalent, or just a 5-man squad to get pick up these 40 or 50 points spare that you would love to just push upgrades around, that would be so cool. But instead we have these fixed squads where there's very few upgrades because you have 10 points to play with.
Yeah, I'm not gonna complain.
And I mean, it'll be better
eventually.
And it'll also be better in Omens when you're not locked into this battalion.
The big issue I think with Votann construction too is they designed everything to be too killy and too durable for how killy it is.
Yes.
So they had to make it an elite army, or else it would just kill everything and not die. And I mean, it still can do
Just
that.
To say,
it's a bit of an issue with it's you have low access to hits, variety, what you're saying. You have one troop unit, you have 2 fast attack options. You have 2 heavy supports, right? We'll get more kits, sure, but yeah, I hope that they revisit the book in 10th edition and kind of tone down the durability and killiness or something.
Did Votann not get a single duel?
No.
I don't think. Wow, that's wild.
I mean, there's technically the Hearthguard, right? Have weapon options.
Yeah. But that's crazy to me that there's a faction that doesn't have a single duel kit in it.
Yeah. The Berserks have weapon options. Yeah, you're seeing a lot more of that these days, where it's either it's a monopose thing with no options, or it's a thing with a weapon swap out.
Yeah, but think about all the Skitarii releases and stuff for AdMech. Every single kit in the AdMech line is a dual kit.
Yeah.
Right, the ponies are a dual kit. The jetpack guys are a dual kit. Are Rangers and Vanguard a dual kit, or are those two different?
I believe
they're a dual kit. Like Lukas said, Sakarans are a dual kit. Their transport tank is a dual kit. Every single AdMech kit is a dual kit.
Very customizable, much like AdMech. It's very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe the third bike squad's better. I just feel having because the thing too is, if I'm losing the guy generating CP every turn, having both the tanks hit on 2s means I don't need to spend the CP for full rerolls on them as much now. Right?
For sure that helps.
So
okay.
And what Lukas is saying, there's going to be a lot of people using player place to hide enforced against me. So being able to go from 2s to 3s on the tanks at all times is very strong.
Yep.
So
all right. Well, we'll definitely poke around, do some testing, and report back to y'all on where we're all feeling as we move things up.
We got a question here I would like to answer from Nick.
Oh, sure.
Would you consider double patrol instead to save on 10 troops? That is another option. The downside of that is that's 2 CP. And if the Grimnir is gone, so the Grimnir is gone, which gives me a CP back for his relic, so I go back up to 3, right? And then I'd spend 2 CP on the patrol and start with 1, which is very bad for a Votann army.
Yeah, it's
obviously
You're
I could cut
down 6 CP. That's quite a change.
I could cut Grudge's End to start on 2, but I honestly really like that relic because it makes the call do something with his activations. Outside of that, he's just an 80-point guy who glares at people and gives reroll ones. Yeah, Nick's saying here, if you wanted to go double patrol, I think you take the Grimnir. So you you go down to starting at 1, and then you can generate extra ones per turn. But this whole reason for the list shakeup isn't I want to spend 115 points on something else. It's or not 125.
Improve the T-Suns matchup, right?
I want to improve the T-Suns Flamer matchup, and for that the Grimnir's got to go.
Also, the Hearthkin are genuinely very good. I mean, 2 squads might be enough, but I've always been impressed with the 3. They're surprisingly hard to get rid of. I mean, obviously, if you focus on them, you can just pick them up. But focusing on them requires
there's no amount of focusing. There's no amount of focusing on a unit that will prevent Nick from rolling 11 straight 4-up invulns. That's not... Get out of here.
That's pretty good, dude. That Thane, dude. He stands resolute sometimes.
Dude is a gangster. My gosh. I would, if I were Lukas, I would pop Blood Shield just to kill that motherfucker. I'd do it.
100%, dude. I'm going in with them sweeps. 21 attacks.
Oh.
Yeah, you get it right back. Yeah. Gone. Very cool. Awesome.
That's
so
a
that's
judgment token for you, dude.
is going in the book. All right, so that's sort of where we're at right now. Give you all a little bit of a recap of what's going on. We'll be bringing you more updates and more content and more bit reps, especially in the future. Let's take a little bit of time now to peek behind the curtain a little bit about what's going forward, because people are very excited about what's new, and not everyone is coming to Vegas. What are some initial responses at first to how the game is changing at large, and then we can talk a little bit about how some of our particular factions are being affected. So here's how we'll do this. General response, are these in total, is this good change, bad change, whatever change, and then pick like your top 2 changes that you're most excited about in the game that are happening, and we'll kind of discuss from there.
Are we gonna like go change by change? Like, what do we think about AOC? What do we think about points changes? What do we think about?
Yeah, we'll talk about a lot of stuff, but I wanted to start with a broad strokes overview about like what are you personally, how do you feel about it? What are you personally the most excited about?
Okay. So broadly between Arcs of Omens, Munitorum Field Manual points changes, and data slate changes, I think the game has improved. I think I'm stand ready to
backpedal very quickly
later in a month's time once I have a couple reps with this packet. If I recall correctly, there's also some rumors that a lot of things in the packet, like the Nephilim packet that people didn't like, are being reversed for Arc of Moments. Obviously, like the free Relic and Willa trait, not so much. But aren't there some changes to Mission 11 and Mission and Conversion, where like the stupid CP stuff isn't as bad?
Conversion is now on a 4-up. You get a CP if your Warlord's dead instead of not at all.
Okay.
I don't know about Retrieval. The other big change that I love is they changed Abandoned Sanctuaries. First of all, they made it worse, and then they also made it better. They made it worse is a weird word. You can also now no longer turn 1 Deep Strike or jump into No Man's Land.
That makes sense.
You can't drop pod in as in addition to you can't forward deploy.
Sure.
Yeah. Right? Because forward deployers are in a lot of reasons are necessary to avoid those kind of alpha strikes for a lot of armies. So saying, okay, you also can't do that. Hilariously, Pure Strains just flex even harder than ever before as they still skirt this particular requirement.
Let's go.
But, yeah, so that's funny. And then the other change they made is they ditched the 5 points endgame.
Oh, thank God, dude.
Good.
That's
just so good.
It's like Death and Zeal now, but only for the center objective. Hold the center, get 2, kill a unit off the center, get 2, do both, get 3.
Oh, okay. So it's just
right.
from over the center, get 15. Yeah.
Exactly. As opposed to one person gets 8 points at the end of the game.
Oh, I went second. I get 9.
Going second.
That mission is now weird because of the no pregame move, but actually a legit mission.
It's improved substantially. So that's great. The conversion change happened, and then some other changes happened. What else? Tide of Conviction. You know how the end game scoring for Tide of Conviction is 2-2-4?
Mm-hmm.
Now it's 3-3-3.
Interesting.
Okay. So they've deprioritized the backfield a little bit.
You still lose a CP if you don't hold your backfield at the start of your turn?
I believe so. And I think that's the most reasonable one that you lose the CP from, personally.
Yeah.
I
never had any problems with that.
Yeah. When you pull it off, you feel like... Yeah. Mm-hmm. What are people telling us down here?
Retrieval did not change, sadly, which is hilarious to me. That was the one people complained about the most. And they decided, you know what? Nah, screw you if you don't pregame move. Screw you if you're playing all OPSEC Necrons now. Get out of here, dude. You lose CP.
Yeah, stop it. Go home. All right.
You can't even play the king in an Arcs and Omen detachment legally. You don't get to CP.
So then... Yeah, so some changes to the packet. Some good, or a lot of good, some bad. In terms of points, I think overall, pretty happy with where points are. I feel like they're the easiest way to make the game balance, and as we've seen from the Meta Watch, like GW is paying attention to this stuff. Whether or not their responses are effective is another debate entirely, but like they are paying attention to it, and points are the easiest way to like remedy. And I think overall points here have been good. Marines came down a lot. That's the one I think we're gonna have to all kind of wait and see, like if it was too much. But like it seems like there were some nudges to things like Tau to put them in a better spot. Who else had a lot of really serious point changes? GSC had some. Oh,
you got a lot of. Oh, Tyranids got sucker punch.
That was probably a little bit excessive.
Yeah. You don't think 70-point Zoanthropes are appropriately costed? A min unit of Zoanthropes, a 3-man, now costs the same as a Maleceptor. After that thing went up 50.
You guys got buggied. You guys basically, they were like, we don't know how to bounce your army anymore, so we just don't want you to play it. Well, they said in the changes, they're like, yeah, we don't want you to play this elite stuff. We want you to play the Horde. Also, the Horde's bad. Go play it.
So,
yeah, if they want you to play the Horde, why didn't they like buff Termagants and Hormagaunts?
I think
why did they price hike Tervagons? Tervagons went up 20 points. Maybe 15.
Dude.
What are we doing?
Elite model, dude.
Yeah, so that's pretty troll. Yeah, there are some points changes to Orcs that are pretty hype. Our homie here, John, is taking Knobs at 27 points per model. He gets 90 points back. Yeah, so for those who aren't aware, Knobs got a discount on their war gear. So Kill Saws, Power Claws, and Big Choppas are all 3 points per model cheaper. So this unit is now spammable. I think it's very good as truckers. I think it's decent as Goffs. I think the best clan to play Knobs in is probably Death Skulls, just because they get OBSEC. They have +1 strength in the wall now. They're much more resilient with the 5 up against mortals, because that unit gets mortaled through very quickly otherwise. And now it's a lot cheaper. So I'm going to definitely be trying out. I don't know about Knob spam. I built some lists with like 20 or 30, and that felt like a little bit too all in. But yeah. Nick here says Death Skulls, Knobs, and Wagons feels pretty good. And I definitely agree. Like 10 dudes with OBSEC that hit really hard, have a bunch of defense, and are cheap as hell. Big plus. So definitely going to be trying out at least 10 to 20 of those in some Orc builds in the future. So keep your eyes out for that, guys.
I know some Necron players are really excited to finally see the well-deserved points drops on Warriors.
Yes.
They're now 11 points a model.
Thank
I think it is
God.
too little too late. I think they're going to get blown off the board by Guard and a lot of other shooting armies. That unit's just not resilient. So now what I do think might be good is Warriors and Ghost Arcs, because Ghost Arcs are kind of resilient. And with AOC going away, AP1 is now valuable again. You can... I know a few other changes with Necrons. The pregame OBSEC became all-consuming, so now if you want to play army-wide OBSEC, Nihilok is just better because you get another chapter tactic and you get a strat. So, lol, that custom dynasty is now trash. But
it's okay. It was the only playable one for 2.5 years.
They couldn't
have
balance
something else for
so.
once.
Yeah, they couldn't balance it, so they said don't play it anymore. I mean, Nihilok's not that much better, but you get action shoot on infantry, which is cool. So when you want to hoof it with your warriors to an objective and scan for some machines, you can shoot your reapers before you die. But yeah, like the Silver Tide 60 warriors walking around, I think if you play that, you're just going to get murdered. Like Marines, we're talking about Marine point drops, Marine war gear is getting like free everywhere. I think you're getting about like a third more Marines on the table than you had before this. And also like they're losing AOC, so they'll die a lot more easily now. But they also get to stay in like their doctrines forever. So if you're playing like a Devastator Doctrine army like Iron Hands, which was like actually pretty good even like, you know, before all these changes, that army is just basically getting +1 AP for the entire game. So when people are shooting all these like, you know, high AP, like even like, let me back it up a bit here. With AOC gone, there's a lot of like AP 1 and 2 coming back, which usually has higher volume of shots, which is not something you want to see as a warrior player. So I think if you're hoofing around 60 warriors, they're just going to get killed by Marines, Guard, other shooting armies out there. Yeah, but maybe look at Ghost Arcs if you're a Necron fan. Keeping your guys protected in that little shell. I think Ghost Arcs went down a little bit. I could be wrong.
Yeah, I was always curious about like not spamming warriors, but like a whole bunch of warriors and a whole bunch of Ghost Arcs seems kind of cool.
Yeah.
Really lacking in the damage department, but like the control over the battlefield seems not bad.
Isn't that what Hackett was playing at War Master?
Yeah. it was very strong at like denying and controlling points, especially on WTC. And now it became cheaper to do it. Obviously, like the secondaries are worse with it. Like treasures isn't as busted as before, but like you can still hold 2 objectives midfield every turn and get 3. Sounds good. It's a very easy 12 and like a 15 if your opponent doesn't table you. Ancient Machines, you can't do it with Ghost Arcs anymore. So like, yes, that's a little bit of a bummer, but what was really good at doing it? Tomb Blades. Who got cheaper somehow? Tomb Blades. Go play those guys. I guess GW
Wait,
saw
what?
no one playing them. Yeah, they dropped 2 points a model, dude. They're 18.
That's like one of the best units in your codex. What are you doing, GW?
Because no wasn't as good as it's not as good as the funny scarab, so they need to make it cheaper.
Yeah, dude. Death Marks went down to 13 points, so now like those are like actually pretty good. What is it? 130 points for 10 shots at like 5-2-1 sniper over 6 to into immortal. They're core, so they can get +1 to hit.
Pretty good in a world where maybe marine characters will be coming back a lot because that unit is
Votann
actually
characters very strong,
viable to kill like a T4 character or something like that.
Yeah. Guard characters strong, GSC characters strong. It's also a cool intercept unit. That unit can deep strike. That unit can counter deep strike and shoot you. Very cool.
Wait, that unit is nutty into guard then. What?
Yeah, you can counter deep strike Kazarkin with it.
Hey, Kazarkin.
I would certainly be taking a Gloctopus if I were.
Let me find.
Gloctopus is a lot better now with AOC going away. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I
Kazarkin just do not like him.
Yeah.
I think overall Necrons got a little worse. Talking about kind of like shifting to the detachment changes. I think for the game as a whole, the detachment change is actually good because with how they designed the CP and Nephilim, no one was shelling out CP for like Vanguards or Outriders. And the only time they were was if that like Vanguard, like a Vanguard of Flamers, was busted as hell. Like most armies are like a single battalion, from what I was seeing.
I have not really had that experience. Weren't there a lot of armies like Eldar and Orcs that were still taking things like Outriders? Or if you wanted more slots, you would just buy a second patrol, which for some reason had 2 patrols had more slots than a battalion for some godforsaken reason.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I think one of the complaints I've heard from some people is, like, we don't have Outriders, Vanguards, what is it? Whatever the heavy support one is. Spearheads. We don't have those anymore, right? Because people want to spam, like, one thing of a data sheet. Like, we have the compulsory slots now, but, like, you can't get, like, 9 fast attack slots anymore if that's something that you wanted. You can only get 6. But, like, I think that's a good thing, right? Everyone's playing with 6 CP now. You're not, like, what you're saying, like Eldar were so, like, their fast attack was so strong that they were kind of forced to spend half their CP on that. Or people were just like, all right, I'm just going to, like, play a single battalion and not spend CP on anything else, So.
I see where those people are coming from. I personally liked the paradigm of, do you value CP more? Then you can get rid of troops. Do you value good units more? Or like, specific battlefield roles? Then you can ditch troops. Like that was cool. In my head, I think of the quintessential example being Blood Angels, right? Where like, if you wanted to fork over 300 points for a battalion, you could. You would just have less good stuff. You would start with more CP and have troops to fiddle around in your backfield with. Or you could run a Patrol Vanguard and actually fork over 3 CP, start with almost no CP, but have nothing but good units. And that was fun. That introduced a lot of like player agency, a lot of cool list making decisions. It really winnowed like the best players from those who weren't so good because you really had to decide what was good in your list. Now it's like everyone's running the same thing. Run whatever you want, whatever. Just cram your stuff in a list. Start with 6 CP. I think it's a little bit more brain dead, and I just don't like it as much. I think it's less interesting.
Yeah, I think it's less interesting. I think it's just better for the game overall, though. Like if they're gonna like tax CP so much, like you got to pay for all your warlord traits and relics. It lets people.
But like, then fix that issue. Don't circumnavigate that issue by building a whole new detachment. Give people their warlord trait and relic for free and use the old detachments. Like, that's what everyone was asking for, was it not?
I agree.
I agree with that, but I think the thought process here is more intentionally going after that thing that you were saying that you enjoyed so much, Lucas. I feel like they're really trying to clamp down on the CP economy because there are so many ways that you can flush it in different directions, whether you value CP for stratagems or CP for relics and warlord traits or CP for detachment slots. And I think that they're hoping that by winnowing options, they'll be easier to balance, which I think is lame. I'm with you on that. I would prefer more options. But if it results in having to freak out less at, oh my gosh, we didn't consider, what if you had 14 fast attack slots? And you can now build units around, okay, you can't possibly take more than 6 fast attack. So your fast attack being overloaded means you have to actually make difficult decisions now about which units you're going to take. It's a different place where the decision point happens, and I see a world where it works. I agree that there's a world where it doesn't, but I'm holding my judgment until I see how it plays.
It's more boring, for sure, but like easier to bounce the game around, because like there were some detachments like the Vanguard Flamer Patrol that was like, this is absolutely worth 3 CP. This is absolutely worth half your CP because it's so strong, right?
Isn't the issue with that Flamers though not list construction?
Yeah, I mean, they bounce Flamers, right? But like, what if another unit comes along that's like, oh, like what Tyler was saying, like this elite unit is so, like these 2 elites are so strong, like you can just spam the hell out of them,
Then
like,
the issue is the elite, not the way the lists are constructed. I see where you guys are coming from, but I am not convinced that it's a worthwhile.
It just makes it easier to balance if everyone's starting from the same playing field. I agree with what Tyler is saying. So
I'm gonna move us along to talk about who I feel are the biggest losers in the Omens detachments, which is demons. I feel so bad for demons, man.
Why?
Warp storm points.
Warp storm table.
How does every mono demons build work right now? You build a soup detachment and you build a thing detachment that you need, and now you don't get a thing detachment.
Okay. So now if you want the Khorne Warp Storm, you have to play Mono.
You're playing Mono Khorne or the Tzeentch Warp Storm, Mono Tzeentch. That's what you're playing. Lame. Yeah.
I mean, that's more of a... That's... I mean, there's still... Oh, can you even get Be'lakor into your list unless you just have him as an HQ?
He's just got to be an HQ. That's the only way you take him.
So you can't even have him, like, do the stupid thing where he's your warlord and you get all the Warp Storms. That's lame.
Well, they got rid of that a while ago.
No, if Be'lakor was in his Supreme Command in Nephilim, he gave you all the Warp Storms.
They FAQ'd that.
Like, in October.
Oh, they did?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That's why people stopped taking Be'lakor.
I mean, some people still do, but
like
so
that's why he's not showing up in every list.
Yeah, when he was in a Supreme Command, you used to have to buy him his Warlord trait. That was the big thing. So you couldn't have another Warlord trait on your Thirster or Long.
Yeah, it was a both and because but whatever the case.
Other things too. Obviously, like Dark Eldar lose pretty bad because their whole thing was like the different patrols of different subfactions. They said they're going to come out with some sort of thing to fix them. Same thing with Dark Angels. I know the whole like Deathwing and Ravenwing stuff. They said
they specifically need to take Outriders to do or Vanguards to do their thing. That feels kind of
other
silly.
things too that someone pointed out. Obviously, I don't have it in front of me, so I can't double check the language. But from what I've seen online, people were saying that there's no longer like the weird writer of like Agents of Chaos like within your detachments. Like, didn't Abaddon only work because he was in a Supreme, like a Black Legion Supreme Command? Like he was in a separate detachment with like a separate, Yeah,
you couldn't just slot him into a.
You could just put him in an Emperor's Legion or Emperor's Children, battalion.
Yeah, that would be souping your subfaction within Chaos Space Marines. I don't think that works.
Yeah, that would.
And
that
I
would
don't
break.
think that
So I think the only way you can run Abaddon right now is in a Black Legion list as an HQ.
Yeah, I think so.
Or as a Lord of War or whatever. No,
HQ. There's no other detachment. Like the only other detachment is an allied patrol.
Or an allied super heavy auxiliary, and the only allied, and obviously he's not a super heavy, he doesn't go to super heavy aux, and the only army that can take an allied patrol detachment of Chaos Space Marines is Disciples of Be'lakor, and Disciples of Be'lakor are explicitly forbidden from taking named characters at all in the army. So, Abaddon is a Black Legion model now.
Doesn't work either, because his dynastic agent says like when he's in your army, prevents other people from like losing their chapter tactic bonus, but like he's still a Zerakin unit, and you can't mix keyword sim detachments, like dynasties and all that.
That's a bummer.
Yeah. So
That's
as
a
written
bummer.
right now, I'm pretty sure the king doesn't work unless you're playing mono Zerikin. So yeah. Same thing with Gaz, unless you're playing mono Goths.
Once we have these rules in our hands in paper, we'll be able to
Double
a lot more firm on these things. And GW may also come out with FAQs as time goes on.
They should, yeah.
But that's weird as hell as the time goes on.
If
All
that
right.
was like intended, then that's a bummer.
Let's talk about some other changes that happen here. Nick, what are the big changes for you that you think are going to have that you're most excited about going forward?
Like just for Votann or like in general?
In general, you can. We'll talk about factions in a sec.
I mean, I think we kind of like touched on a lot of them
for sure.
already.
That's fine.
Yeah.
How do we all feel about the allies?
That's one we haven't talked about things you dislike. I really dislike that Votann can be an Imperium ally. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
Same.
Yeah, it's also like we were talking about them making everyone forced to take one detachment makes it easier for them to bounce, and then they were like, what if we open up the ally matrix again? It's like, guys, like, have you not learned from the past? Like,
but it's like it's not even open. It's like it's closed. Like allies don't exist now except for like 6 of them. Why?
Like, why did we need to do that? You know?
Yeah.
Why did we need to do it in the first place? Like, it seems like what you're saying. Yeah, like it's very restrictive, but also like, why do we need?
Can you even build a
allies?
forces list now?
No, Forces of the Hive Mind is no longer a faction. I keep talking about this, and people think that I'm exaggerating, and they're like, oh man, your faction got nerfed, sucks to suck. And I'm like, no, my faction did not get nerfed. Forces of the Hive Mind did not take a price hike. We did not lose some rules. We do not exist. If you have a Tyranids Arcs of Omens detachment, you cannot bring an allied detachment. You cannot have keyword, Hive Tendril, and keyword Gene Stealer Cult can no longer be in the same army. Ever, under any circumstances.
It's
Done.
funny that
My
they like,
faction
did
was
that, and then
removed
they're
from the
like,
game.
all right, Space Marines and Votann, join up, boys. They're like sisters in Votann. You know, like lifelong allies, dude.
Yeah,
Your sisters
absolutely.
in the Stone
Death
Sword
Watch and
Man.
Votann.
Oh, yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Oh, these Xenos. I love them.
Love
Fighting
those
them.
guys. Yeah.
Yeah,
God.
very,
Too, like-
very dumb. They still have not figured out how to do allies correctly, is what I've realized.
I don't think the Allied patrols have like the wording of what is it? The traveling players thing, where they don't stop you from losing your monofaction bonus. Like, do you just lose your monofaction bonus if you take an Allied patrol?
That's what I'm trying to figure out. I'm not entirely sure. I pulled up Goonhammer here has this big write-up on it. I don't think they mention anything about, like, I had heard that this was all traveling players. I don't know that I've seen that anywhere.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Is like, I don't know if I've seen that language anywhere.
Yeah, if someone
would be hilarious. That would make allies absolutely useless unless your army is like so bad that the monofaction bonus doesn't matter and you're just trying to spam data sheets from 2 armies, which is really
so like the demons and traveling players rules still apply.
Well, doesn't that say? Oh yeah, because it's still a demonic.
It's still a patrol. And it's still demons. And you can take demons with CSM, only CSM. You can't take demons at Chaos Knights anymore. Thank the good. Yeah, that's an option right there.
You can take demons with CSM, right? Can't you take? But it's only.
Yeah. No, you can take demons with CSM. You can't take demons with Chaos Knights. No more CK.
Yeah.
No demons
no,
at CK.
No more CK flamers, dude.
Yeah, that's gone.
Fluffiest army of all time.
Thank you,
So
Colby, for your service.
Yeah.
I am very happy with the Flamer change. I think it was a fantastically executed change.
Agreed.
Yeah. I know Demons players
makes
were
them
really worried about the points getting super hiked.
It makes them still a very good unit that does some things especially well, and if you're willing to apply resources in the right places, can just brutalize. But they are a unit that now has very obvious weaknesses that can definitely be played around, and that feels reasonable for its points now.
I think, yeah, it one of the bigger things for me playing armies that wanted to kill them in melee is the fact that they won't absolutely obliterate you on Overwatch.
Exactly.
Even if it was like, even if they made the change so they don't auto hit on Overwatch, I feel like that would have been sufficient. But just no auto hitting in general is nice. So
yeah,
very happy
the
with
ability
the change.
Yeah, being an army that has a lot of -1 to hit and often access to -2 to hit, very nice to be like, oh wow, I can do something about your silly flamers. So that'll be great.
No, I don't get to send the Grimnir to his death anymore. To soak Overwatch for the Berserkers.
Tragic. How are we feeling about over in Orkland, Lucas? What do we think the boys are looking like? Let's move into some factions.
Well, turns out the army of AP 1 and 2 really likes seeing Arm of Contempt go away. The Arcs of Omen's Detachment is also overall a net improvement for Orcs. We can get a second War Boss into our list with net +1 CP because we're not paying for a patrol. You instead use that heroic support, whatever the hell. So you can run just like the classic Goffs list, but with +1 CP and some more fast attack slots. Or you can run something new that like doesn't really rely on kill rigs and beast snaggers. I haven't really figured out which one is better yet at all, nor tested any of it. I like kill rigs, but I think other stuff in Orcs is a lot cooler. So the list I'm building right now have like 30 Gretchen for mission play, and then just a whole bunch of either elites or fast attack, depending on which one I want to focus on in the Arcs of Omen, with the new construction. Having 6 fast attacks in one lit, yeah, cans at 30 points. If you like, I don't like the can model, so I won't be running them because I'm that kind of idiot. But having
He said the same thing about kill rigs too, guys. Don't worry.
He said the same thing about Groth. He said the same thing about mech guns. He said the same thing about shock attack guns. He said the same thing about tank busters. He said the same thing about looters.
Anyway, boss.
Come on, Lucas.
I did not say the same thing about tank busters. You're a liar. You're a liar. That was always one of my favorite orc units.
Sorry, only 11 of the last 12 units that he spammed. Go on.
Fuck you. But yeah, having 6 fast attack slots is great. It's probably gonna end up looking like 3 squads of pigs and 3 squads of storm boys. And then you run some battle wagons, you run some knobs, you run some commandos, you crump.
How many kill rigs do you run?
0.
Dang.
Skill rig out. Wagon.
What you want to talk to us about some of the changes to the orc secondaries?
Yeah, so Get the Good Bits was buffed. It now gives you 4 points when you do it, and it maxes at 6. Awesome.
Go get him, boss.
And then the exclusion zone for Green Tide was reduced from a 6-inch from table quarter divider to a 3-inch. So now that's a lot better as well. That won't be as much of an auto pick as Get the Good Bits, because I think orc lists are going to be a little bit less hoardy. Like there's going to be less 10-man units. Actually, I don't even know if that's true. But yeah, Green Tide was definitely buffed. Good Bits is now even more automatic than it was before, and they got rid of Biggest and the Best, which is both a blessing and a curse. Biggest was like between 8 and 12 to 14 points usually, so like a really good secondary in a slot where orcs oftentimes had some difficulty picking good secondaries. But it does enable us to take more aggressive war bosses, and aggressive war bosses are the best. So no more -1 to wound, 5 heal no pain boss. We're going with damage boss. So the boss loadout I have right now in my army is Zagstruck. I've got the Goth boss with +1 AP and the 5 at feel no pain in there, just for a nice mix between durability and damage. And then also a foot Goth boss with Power Claw, Brutal but Cunning, or Killer Claw, Brutal but Cunning, just for max hit. Yeah, pretty good.
Very hype.
The other thing that's pretty big for people that'll be running things like Flash Gits and Killicans now is the Strategic Reserve Strange. Enabling units that both have decent shooting and melee to just come in off the board edge for free and then ramming speed in is it's just so good, man. I think Killicans in particular are going to be really good with that, because they'll just wander in for free, blast with rocket, charge onto objective with kill saw.
Yeah, for sure. The strategic reserve change reminds me, we haven't mentioned yet my absolute favorite change in the balanced data slate. What's the best change in the balanced data slate, Lucas?
Oh,
Did they bring back
secondary
that
changes?
secondary you like?
The bell behind
Fuck planes.
Oh yeah, biplanes.
that is my favorite one. I completely forgot about that one.
It's the best change.
How
They
players will
double
have to use their brains
ruin
now.
them. They have to start in reserves, and you can't fly off the board if you want to bomb people.
It's great.
Now it's how players
fantastic.
can't make the wrong choice 100% of the time, like absolute idiots, and watch as I laugh at them. Should I bomb? Should I
so
not?
astounds me. I'm gonna fly off the board and bomb both.
I
those
think it's
land
correct
trains
to move
separately.
block here.
Like-
Okay, you're a fucking idiot.
Yeah, so bombing has gone from a turn 1 alpha strike to a turn 3 maybe. The soonest you can bomb
Thank God,
is turn
dude.
3.
Good.
It's
No one likes the
so
dumb
good.
model.
Get
I
out of here.
hated bombs, dude. Like a Void Raven bomber. Like, I know that one's not that good, but even that one, you go second against
Who
like 2
cares?
Void Ravens, your opponent looks at you and you like, please don't roll some 4s, dude.
Yeah. So sayonara to all of that.
If you like
Awesome.
planes,
Alright,
go
play
play
that in
Aeronauta
open
Imperialis. Don't play.
Yeah, there's a
40K,
whole
don't play-
game for y'all.
Yeah,
Get out of
pl-
here.
There's a game for your zoom planes.
Harpies, get them out. Gone. I never want to see them again. I hate them. I hate them so much. They're so bad. Bye-bye. All right.
Some people would
so is that
argue
what...
that being forced to start in reserves for Harpies is good, though. I know
It-
there's
it
a certain
is,
someone who
but-
likes doing that. Yeah.
Yeah, as it turns out. It probably is, but also Harpies are gone because Tyranids as a faction are gone. Do you guys know that for Warriors, you know how the big guns they can take? The Venom Cannon and the Barbed
Venom?
Strangler?
Yeah.
Right? You know which one's like objectively better so it costs more points? That's
Heavy Venom Cannon.
just the regular Venom Cannon, yeah. So
Yeah.
the Venom Cannon stayed at 5 points, and the Barbed Strangler went from 0 points to 10 points.
The one that no one was taking.
The one that no one was taking.
They thought it'd be better
Alright,
with AOC.
so maybe
gone,
they
dude.
really just have no idea what's
They
going
were like,
on.
AOC's
dude.
gone. Everyone's gonna play AP1 weapons again, dude. Like,
You need to look at the Tyranid Warriors changes. I think is the most ridiculous set of points changes I've ever seen. The unit at the base cost for the record is still 30 points per model. Adrenal glands are still 15 points a unit. Each bone sword is now 5 points, so their weapon went up 10, and the Death Spitter went up 5. So they went up 15 points a model.
Oh my god. Just so you know, GW, I don't know if you ever went to kindergarten, but there are actually 4 other numbers between 0 and 5. Ready? Ready for this? There's 1, there's 2, there's 3, and there's 4. Holy shit. Kindergarten, guys. I know you guys don't have that in jolly old fucking England.
they
Or I
figured
don't
it
know
out
what
with
you guys have.
with
But there's
Votann.
4 other numbers that you can choose between 0 and 5. Because that plainly is too good at 0, and it is very dog shit at 5. So pick something in between. Jesus Christ, man. It's either free war gear or it's too expensive now. I don't understand it. Alright,
So-
this is why
so
we
to
need
be clear-
all tier list.
Absolutely. So to be clear, the secret best warrior loadout of all time, the quad scything talon warriors, have not changed in points at all. They're still 30 points with the 15 for adrenal glands, and those dudes do have 9 attacks apiece, which is hilarious. So yeah. So that was tragic. Neurothropes went up 20 points, which was rude. Old One Eye went up, which was rude.
Wait,
Tyrant
Neurothropes
Guard-
went up?
Neurothropes went up to
That makes
110.
The guy
They're
standing
really
in the
good.
You take
Yeah.
one of, and he stands in the back for 100 points.
Yeah,
That
it's just a
was-
20
that
point
was pretty
tax for
good.
playing Tyranids. Yeah. I think that's a fair. I think that's
No, I think that's way more fair than the Zoanthrope. Like that guy was auto include bar none and like never
Yeah.
died, unless you're playing Harlow.
never died and never failed a spell if you get him correctly.
Yeah,
My poor
that
Tyrant
guy
Guard
should
went up.
probably be like 150 or something. Like,
My poor
that guy's
Tyrant
the
Guard
linchpin
went.
to the
Yeah.
list.
What happened
My
to
poor
Tyrant?
Tyrant Guard went up. They went up from 40 to 45. But what kills me is that they still have not fixed Crushing Claws. So Crushing Claws are still 10 points per claw.
I mean, you got no sympathy from Lukas, dude. He's got to pay for both kill saws.
But he can you do you have to take both or can you take one or under two?
I could take one.
Yeah, I
Kinda
can't
bad,
do
too,
that.
though.
The only option is Crushing Claws. You take 2, and it costs 10 points per. I swear it's a typo.
Is the Crushing Claw good?
No, it's bad. I probably wouldn't take it even if it were free. But it's the only one that costs points, and it costs 20 points a model.
Yeah, the Kill Saw is like 5 points for a side grade, but 20 points for a downgrade seems troll.
You know what? You know what else went up in points? You know who else went up in points?
Raveners? No, that thing?
The Trigon?
The Trigon. Trigon is up to 160
they don't want you
from
playing
150.
elite models, dude. They want you.
Is there anything good in the NIDS Codex now? Because you can't do Reaper Flyron anymore.
No, Flyrants are dead. So Walkrunts are still good. The Hive Tower Foot didn't change at all. Walkrunts are still good.
Gargoyles,
Gargoyles are still good. They're unchanged. Gaunts are still exactly as they were. Raveners went up to 45 points a model. Love that.
Oh my god.
They were 35?
They were 35. Yeah, they went up 10 points a model.
Spore Mines aren't free anymore.
Man.
That one.
Yeah, Spore Mines are untakeable.
Let's go, dude.
You know who else went up in points? I know I told you guys already, but just for the podcast. You know who else went up in points? You know who else went up in points? Where's my boys? They're not here. They're in Portland. Where are my Hive Guard? Hive Guard went up 5 points a model. No one has taken a Hive Guard since this Codex dropped. Not even once, not even as a joke. And if you think you saw someone who did, you're wrong. They're lying to you. Not even as a joke. So rude. So rude. It's
now
a
they
bummer.
get to be the janky army you wanted them to be, dude. Because no one.
They absolutely. I'm excited about that. You know who else didn't get a points hike is these boys.
You
The
said you never played those again.
Oh, dude, they're coming back. AOC's gone. AP2.
Strength and AP2 meta, baby.
Kill them, intercessors.
Yeah, we have a few questions about, or a few comments about the allies and Abaddon, especially, if we wanted to address those real quick.
Yeah, it looks like McWarp came in to let us know that traveling players is not a universal rule. It's just traveling players and demons and whatnot that do that. So, no change there. So, Votann as an ally will break whatever the hell you were taking. That's good.
Yes.
Shard Gullet is exactly what he used to be. I never liked him, and I still don't, but I see the value in him. You hated Raveners. Cool. I hated you. Yeah. Raveners are great.
Look at this. Oh, here we go. Warhammer Matt pointing out that Abaddon does have the Agents of Chaos keyword. I think that's true. I think the issue is since he's Black Legion, and if you put him inside of an Emperor's Children battalion, I don't even think you can legally do that. And if
demons would have Agents of Chaos too, right? If that's per the Demons book, if they're less than a quarter of your army, so could you just
and
slot
a patrol.
four random?
No,
it has to be a patrol.
That has to be and a patrol.
Okay, yeah never mind then.
And
But it does seem weird to just put Abaddon in the middle of your demons list, right? Because then you have different.
Yeah, you definitely can't do that.
We're talking about can Abaddon go in other CSM legions? I don't think he can.
I think he can. I think he can. Because he can. Because the detachment is legal because every single unit in the detachment has Heretic Astartes keyword, and then the check happens. Does every model in this detachment share the Emperor's Children keyword? Yes, it does, because Abaddon is exempt from that check. So maybe. Yeah. I'm not a Chaos player. I don't have any allies anymore. They took that away from me. So I'm not the expert here. We'll check around and get back to you on that later, or go talk to Chuck. I'm sure he knows how it works. But yeah, so that's
I just saw
that's a bunch of what's going
about online about that Abaddon and the King don't work anymore, and I'm like, well, that's a problem for post LVO. Yeah, well, yeah. Again, this is an LVO podcast. We'll figure this nonsense up once the rest of y'all deal with it first. As far as GSC are concerned, we got some awesome changes. The secondary changes for us are huge. Oh my gosh, Ambush got buffed through the roof. People are like, it's a huge change. Absolutely massive. For those of y'all who don't remember how Ambush worked in the past, 3 bullets, kill a unit that has a crossfire token on it, get a point. Kill a unit that is exposed, the old-fashioned way exposed, with a gun, 2 points. Kill a unit with a unit of yours that arrived from reserves or from a blip this turn, get 2 points. Caps at 4.
made 2 changes. First change, that first one, kill a thing with crossfire on it in any phase, is now 2 points. Second change, it caps at 5. So the secondary is now like, turn 1, you're scoring, your Pure Strains go eat a unit that your Sanctus put a token on, and you get 4 points for that. And then turn 2, you get auto 5, and you're at 9 at the end of turn 2. And then you kill something with exposure on turn 3, because of course you did, and you're at 13. And then you kill anything with a token over turns 4 or 5, and you get 15. Super good secondary now. This is fantastic. It was good, and now it's great. And then secondly, the behind enemy lines change. Oh, I love it. I love it so much. I love it so much. Behind enemy lines, for those of y'all who weren't keeping track, used to be 2 points if you have a unit in your opponent's DZ at the end of your turn, 4 points if you have 2 units. Now it's 3 points for 1 unit, 4 points for 2. And if 1 or more of those units is a troop, you get a CP out of it.
Ring the bell.
Ring the bell, baby. If it weren't the most annoying thing in the world, I would absolutely bring a bell with me to tournaments and ring it every time I rang the bell. Because, man, oh man, that secondary is good. Like, it competes with Broodswarm, which is already basically an auto 15, so it's matchup to matchup whether or not it's worth it. But if I want a pile of CP, Daddy's going to get himself a pile of CP. I'm very excited. The points changes for GSC were also very nice. People keep telling me that bikes are dead.
Yeah.
Let's work on your math here, brother. So, yeah, the unit of bikes, just basically what happens is that everyone is required to take the melee weapons because they went up 3 points, but the melee weapons are free now. And then the quads go up another 3 as well. So the squad in general went up, 36 points. Cool. But the heavy incinerators on the quads, the heavy flamers, are free now. So that's 20 points less. So they're up 16 points, they all get melee weapons, and they get 2 grenade launchers. Massive win-win. So my army goes up 48 points, 16 times 3, and then drop points off of all of the characters. They finally came down. We've been asking for this forever. Finally came down. And also cult icons went down from 20 to 10. And so suddenly, I end up, I think it's a net like 13 points is what my list changed by. No problem. I can tweak a couple things, drop Excavate probably to fix that. And then every single Neophyte squad gets 4 free flamers. Or maybe grenade launchers for the long distance squad, but that's neither here nor there. It's silly. Silly. I'm very excited. Very excited.
Hell yeah, dude.
Here's one question for y'all, though, and then I'll let Nick talk about Votann and then we'll wrap up, because I realize we're going pretty long. I am actually wondering if flamers are the right choice.
What's the alternative? The Weber?
Yeah. The Weber. The grenade launcher is the third choice. So here's what the Weber does, and I'm going to read it to you. And
no,
I'm
what
ask
the Weber do? What
the Weber do? Okay. I'm going to ask that you not laugh, because this is.
Hey, you're laughing.
Okay. So a Weber. It's a weapon for neophytes. It is 18-inch range. It is Assault D3 Blast. Strength 1, AP 0, 1 damage. Each time an attack is made with this weapon, do not make a hit roll. It auto-hits. Instead, roll 1d6, and the attack sequence ends. If the result of that d6 is greater than the highest strength characteristic in the target unit, the unit suffers a mortal wound.
Yeah, you should run that, 100%.
Okay, Chaos Knight's play.
Strength 6 orc mode.
Yes,
how many
it's not nearly as good
can you take in a unit?
In general, I think that might be pretty good, though, right?
4. So it's 4 Webbers or 4 Flamers. They're both free. And you also get a web pistol if you want on the Sergeant.
And your Flamers are just basic Flamers?
Just basic Flamers, just that they're buffed by the usual GSC stuff.
Are they industrial?
Flamers are not industrial. Are Webbers industrial? Great question. I don't know. Let me look it up.
Well, that wouldn't really matter, though, right?
It doesn't matter at all.
Oh, yeah. I meant were the basic Flamers industrial. Because the incinerators are industrial, right?
If the Webbers are industrial, they might kill themselves when he uses the strat.
No, they don't roll a hit.
Yeah, roll a hit.
Oh,
and you don't benefit from +1 damage from the strat, so...
Yeah. No, it interfaces with absolutely nothing that I can personally think of right now, because there is no max shots for industrial.
The Flamers are better into the general populace. just because, like what Lucas is saying,
Okay.
the Webers have a fall off point. They're useless into anything that's strength 6 or higher.
Yeah, neither
Honestly,
Webers nor
useless into
Flamers are.
strength 5 or higher.
Neither Webers nor Flamers are useful into. Neither of them are industrial. So here's some math for you. Let's say that I'm shooting at Marines, because Marines are going to be a big. If I shoot at a 5-man Marine squad, if I get crossfire exposed and reroll ones of both kinds to the squad, the Flamers do 14 hits, 10.9 wounds, 3.63 failed saves for 3.63 damage. Webers are 8 shots, which do 2.67 mortals. Now, that's obviously that's like a whole wound less. But the moment we get to blast, because they're blast, we jump up to an average of 4 mortals. So now if we're firing a 6-man Marine squad, now we're better. Now here's the other thing of why I think they might be especially nice. First of all, if you take away the real ones to wound, those Flamers do a little less damage. The +1 to wound is probably sticking around, but you can take that away.
What about
here's the other thing. Let me get there. We'll get there when we get there.
Sorry.
Here's the other thing. Gravis is going to be very popular. I think we're going to see a lot of Gravis who are T5, which makes Flamers worse, but are strength 4 just as good. Yep. Intriguing. And this is the kicker, Lucas, is the range. They're 18 instead of 12. And I think that with Marines on the rise, there's going to be a lot of, do I really want to drop in within 12 and get shot at?
Yeah.
So I'm intrigued. It's
also really good into like strength 3 armies that are still hanging around. Like if you ever happen to run into any of those.
Yes, dude. If you run into stuff, yeah. If you run into stuff that's like strength 3 with good armor saves, like think about Sacrosancts. Of like check me out, my 2-up save. Oh, you're strength 3 though. Bye bye. If Harlequins continued to exist, it would be huge into them.
Yeah.
Anything with a really good save to just nope. It's also hilarious into demons, demonettes. No 4-up invulns against any of this nonsense. Flamers are strength 5, which is silly. But also the other thing is the spike potential is really high. Like if you just roll hot and you're like, hey, here's 7 mortal wounds.
Yeah, it's a free weapon at the end of the day. So if it doesn't do anything, like whatever. Yeah,
it's just do you want it over a Flamer? So like for those of y'all who stick around this long, there's your second piece of GSC finger waving magic for the day.
Dude, you should
I'll
play
think
the
about
Webers.
it some.
Sounds hilarious.
It's entertaining as hell. I did just buy 30 more neophytes to make sure I have enough seismic cannons and flamers and everything to go around. So I may just build all my dudes with Webers as well. So we'll
Max
have
is going to be
for
so
everything.
happy.
The cool thing is that web pistols, those things look sick. I love me.
Yep.
I'm having way too much fun building sergeants for all my squads, making them all cool and unique and whatnot. So we'll see about that. Maybe the Webers in the move. Anyway, Nick, tell us briefly about Votann in the New World, and then we'll wrap things up for the day.
The New World, dude. Yeah. Well, this is a example of where GW did learn another number exists between 0 and 5. Mostly the number 3. And they bumped up, what is it? They bumped up Berserkers by 3, which, I mean, at this point, it's hilarious. They should just be bumping the hammers up. But yeah, Berserks are very strong, or they should be doing something about Ymir. Berserks are very strong in Ymir, so giving them a little bonk on the head makes sense. Some people out there will tell you to take none of them, though, for some reason. You should probably take 10 to 15. Hearthkin went up a point, which I think is kind of silly. They were already like the worst unit, not the worst unit in the book. They're very good, but they were already like, people were already looking at how do I take double patrol? And now with Arcs of Omen, they're like, how do I play 0 troop lists? They already went up 1 point. I think 12 points was perfectly fine for them. 13 points is like, okay, sounds good. I think it's because they're the only army with AOC left. So GW is like trying to kind of be like that. Also trying to hit them at their tax a little bit. Hearthkin are the only like thing that controls objectives really well. The bikes are obsec, but they're 3 models, so they usually just die. The Hearthkin are like your action doers, your objective holders, also your chip damage. So as much as people don't want to play them, I do think they're kind of necessary. Without them, your footprint on the board is very small. So I see what they're doing here, and taxing them at 1 point, at least it's not 2. What else? Land trains went up 10. I think that's totally fine. Just kind of keep increasing them until it basically is. GW is saying, are they okay with the 2 train builds? They price them out of the 3 train builds. You could probably play a 3 train build in teams, but I think in singles it's way too greedy. If GW doesn't want us to play 2 train builds, though, they're going to keep increasing the price until like only 1 train is viable. Characters going up, the Call going up 10, I think makes sense. He's the guy who like spreads all the judgment around, gets your judgment train rolling. The Grimnir going up 10 doesn't make a lot of sense. I think he's the worst character. The Forge Master coming off unscathed also doesn't make sense. I think he's the best character. I think that they should have done like 10-point bump on the Forge Master upgrade and left the Grimnir alone, or 10 points on both. There you go. But the Forge Master remaining unchanged is very silly. Thunderkin went down 3 points. I think they're still bad. The beam ones are better with AOC gone because AP2, but also they can beam themselves, so not good. The grav guns much stronger because AOC is going down and Marine's coming back. Grav's going to be very strong. A bunch of 3 damage into who is Gravis. I think a squad of 4 on a land train could be strong. Like leaping out and being like, you got a judgment, 1 CP, brrr, shooting a bunch of D6 blast shots into these like 6-man Gravis squads. Gonna be good, but I don't know if it's better than Berserks, especially at the cost of 37 points a model or something. Actually, I think they're 35, so like 32. Might be something I fiddle around with post Selvia. So yeah, those are the main Votann changes. Bikes, Sagittars unchanged. I think they're in a good spot. Yeah.
So what is your like?
10. Don't know why. that
guy is too cool to be allowed to be played apparently.
Yeah.
So as far as the Beam Death that you're playing in particular, what do you think is like the immediate port over? Obviously, there's lots of cool other ideas to play with, but like if you were going to just immediately port and you had to play this in Vegas, for example, what would be the immediate changes that just sort of shoehorn in the new points?
So my list gets 100 points more expensive, which means you have 2 options. It's either cut the 100-point Grimnir, and now you don't have to worry about the T-Sun's Flamer matchup. I mean, in the Arcs of Omen world, you don't have to either. So the Grimnir might still be valuable. Or you cut a squad of troops, which gives you 25 points to fiddle around with, and then you can kind of juice up your 2 remaining squads of troops, which seems pretty cool. I think you definitely want to buy the scanner. Ignoring light cover on Marines is going to be very strong. So then you have 15 points to fiddle around with. I don't know what you buy after that, but those are like the 2 options. So it's either Grimnir bye-bye or Hearthkin bye-bye. But yeah, that's what I would do. It's the simplest change if I didn't want to rewrite the whole list.
Makes sense to me. Very cool. All right, so there's your full recap on what's going on with us, what we got going forward, what we got kind of looking through the little looking glass into the far future. We'll be back next week with some more very specific LVO-oriented content. I'm guessing we're probably going to do a lot of generic stuff, talk about more tournament-oriented things, travel tips, going to Vegas, stuff like that, and then also obviously talk about a little bit of competitive content because that's what we do around here. And then the week before, we will hopefully have full unlocked lists. Please, Reese. We'll see. And at that point, things should get pretty fun. We got some fun stuff planned for y'all. So, you guys got anything else you want to add before we sign off for the week?
Nah, I'm good to go.
Alrighty, well, with that all being said and done, welcome to 2023. I've been Tyler.
I've been Nick.
And I'm still Lucas.
And we will see you for part 2 of the LVO extravaganza. Take care, everybody.
Later, nerds.